All right, today we are opening up the Geographer's Toolkit. We're going to dive into the core models that help us make sense of our incredibly complex world, everything from how our cities grow to why wealth is spread so unevenly across the globe.
I mean, have you ever wondered why big cities just seem to have this gravitational pull? They just suck in people and opportunities from all over the place. What's that all about?
And then, let's zoom out. Why are there these huge, vast differences in wealth and development that we see all across the world? I mean, these are massive questions.
Well, to get to the answers, geographers don't just, take a wild guess. They use a very specific set of tools. Tools designed to find patterns in all this beautiful complexity. And those tools, they're called models.
So when the world is a geographic model, put simply, it's a simplification of a super complex reality. The best way to think about it is like a toolkit, right? You wouldn't use a hammer to saw a piece of wood. In the same way, each model is a specialized tool for a very specific job. The trick is knowing which one to pull out of the box. So let's grab our first tool from the kit and wade into one of the biggest, most fundamental debates in all of geography: population. Okay, so in one corner, hailing from way back in 1798, we have Thomas Malthus, and let me tell you, his prediction was pretty grim. He argued that our population was going to grow so fast, it would completely outstrip our ability to feed ourselves, leading to, well, catastrophe. Then in the other corner, more than 150 years later, you've got Esther Boserup, who argued the complete opposite, that population pressure is actually what sparks human innovation.
Malthus really did not mince words. He saw population growth as this unstoppable force, and our ability to produce food as a very limited one. For him, it was a collision course, plain and simple. But Boserup, she just flips the whole problem on its head. She basically says, hold on, necessity is the mother of invention. Her idea is that when population pressure builds, we don't just give up and starve, we innovate. We invent our way out of the problem. You can see those steps up in the chart. Those are big breakthroughs, like the agricultural revolution or the green revolution. For Boserup, a growing population is the engine of progress, not the end of it.
But of course, the story isn't just doom versus boom. We've got a much more nuanced tool in the kit called the Demographic Transition Model, or the DTM. And what it shows us is this really predictable pattern. As countries develop, they move through different stages. They start with high birth rates and high death rates. Then, as things get better, death rates fall, which leads to a massive population explosion. And then finally, birth rates start to fall too, and the population begins to stabilize. It's a journey every developed country has gone through.
Okay, so we've talked about how many people there are, but what about where they go? Let's pull out our next set of tools to tackle migration.
The first tool here is really the foundation. Back in the 19th century, a guy named Ravenstein just watched people. And he came up with some basic laws. Honestly, they're things that might seem kind of obvious now, like the fact that most people tend to move short distances, or that they often move in a series of smaller steps. And no surprise, it's usually young adults who are making those big moves.
Then things get a little more mathematical with the gravity model. It's an idea borrowed straight from physics. The concept is actually really simple. Big cities have more gravity, a stronger pull. But, and this is key, that pull gets weaker the farther away you are. It's why someone from a small town is way more likely to move to a big city nearby than one all the way across the country. It's all about size and distance.
And this is where the toolkit starts to get really cool, because the tools start to work together. Zielinski's model brilliantly connects migration directly to that demographic transition model we just talked about. The big idea is that the type of migration a country experiences actually changes depending on its stage of development. So a country in stage 2 of the DTM might see tons of people moving from farms to cities, while a country in stage 4 might see more people moving from the city out to the suburbs. It tells a much bigger, more complete story.
So we've got models for population and for movement. Now let's look at how we actually organize our spaces, from the wide open country to the bustling city.
We're now shifting our focus to how we organize space itself. And what's wild is that whether you're looking at a huge farm or a dense city, there's often an underlying logic, a constant calculation of cost, distance, and profit that shapes everything. Let's see how that works.
Out in the country, von Thünen's model is the classic. He had this amazing insight that what farmers choose to grow often depends on one simple thing: how much it costs to get their stuff to the market. So things like dairy and fresh vegetables, which spoil fast and are expensive to ship, have to be grown close to the city. But grains, which are lighter and last forever, can be grown much farther away. It's simple economics. Now, inside the city itself, our models had to evolve because cities themselves changed so dramatically. We started with this simple idea from Burgess of a city organized in neat concentric rings. But then came things like streetcars and, of course, highways, and that simple ring model just didn't fit anymore. So we had to develop new tools, like the sector model and the multiple nuclei model, to better explain how a modern city with all its different centers and transportation corridors actually grows.
And for our last stop, let's zoom all the way out. I mean, all the way. How in the world do we create a model for the entire global system of power and wealth?
One of the most powerful and controversial tools for this is Wallerstein's world systems theory. It basically says, forget looking at individual countries, you have to see the world as one single interconnected capitalist system. In this system, there's a wealthy core that reaps most of the benefits, a periphery that provides the cheap labor and raw materials, and a semi-periphery that's kind of stuck in the middle.
And this is absolutely critical to understand. Not every tool in the geographer's kit agrees. Wallerstein's model argues that the system is built to be unequal, that the core depends on the periphery staying poor to remain rich. But then you have a model like Rostow's stages of growth, which is way more optimistic. It sees development like a ladder that every single country can climb on its own, if it just takes the right steps. So one model sees a fixed system of dependency, while the other sees a universal path to prosperity. Two totally different tools, two totally different conclusions.
So, wow, we have looked at population, migration, land use, and global economics. We have seriously filled up our toolkit today.
So let's just recap the biggest ideas. First, and this is the most important, models are not reality. They are simplifications. Their whole job is to help us cut through the noise and spot patterns, to analyze things, and sometimes even make predictions. And just like our world is always changing, our tools, our models, have to evolve right along with it.
By getting a handle on these core models, you've basically just been handed a foundational toolkit. You now have this incredible ability to look at the world around you and start to analyze it, to see the hidden patterns with a geographer's eye.
So I'm going to leave you with this question. Take a look around you. Look at your city, your country, the whole world. Which of these models, from Malthus's dire predictions to Wallerstein's global system, best helps you make sense of the patterns you see every single day?